Yes. Okay.
Go.
All right. Okay. Today I am excited to get to introduce Tammy Ayers, who writes under the name T.S. Mart, and her artist daughter, Mel Cobb. And I discovered Tammy and Mel when their book, The Legend of Bigfoot, was released this past October by Indiana University Press. So besides writing about legendary cryptids, Tammy also writes true-to-life fiction to inspire and entertain. And Mel is a talented artist with a passion for designing creatures, cryptids, and monsters. And she says constantly looking for inspiration in nature is what keeps her imagination alive. Tammy and Mel created and maintain the Cryptid World website, which is full of interesting and fun facts, legends, puzzles, news, and more. And I would encourage you to check that out. They live in Greenville, Ohio, about 33 miles northwest of Dayton. So now I'm going to turn the program over to Tammy and Mel while the rest of us sit back and find out about their fascination with Bigfoot and lots of other cryptozoological legends.
Hi,
Hello.
thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank
It's
you.
great to be here. I wish we were with you in person. Maybe someday we can do that. So I'm Tammy, and I write under T.S. Mart, as Janice said. And in addition to writing the nonfiction, I truly like to write fiction. So YA crossover with a strong emphasis on romance and suspense, adventure. So that is actually how we came to this nonfiction book was through our fiction. Mel works on ancillary products for the fiction, things like postcards or trading cards, things like that. So she helps with the formation of the monsters and creatures that each of our fictional books always features one of those. So that is what I do and what I'm working on. And I'll let Mel tell about what she does in addition to illustrating for nonfiction.
Yeah, so I'm Mel Cobb. I'm a creature designer, concept artist. I illustrated the books, and I often do commissions for Cryptid World, and things that you need done. I also do commissions for people who ask me to draw creatures for their own personal projects. Kind of a business that I'm trying to upbring is that concept creature designs for people. So that's my story. It's not as big as hers, but
Yep, she's not as old as me. So we're here to talk to you about our book, which is The Legend of Bigfoot, leaving his mark on the world. But we'll also talk a little bit about our writing process, how we came to this project. And then we want to introduce you a little bit to the Bigfoot culture and what that's like, because it's quite unique. Now, a lot of my background, or my whole background in my day job, is in social work. So I'm a social worker. I work with the inner city geriatric population and helping to connect them to services. And I have always had a fascination with culture and people and human behavior and the dynamics. And I really didn't expect to find that in the Bigfoot culture. Or when I was researching for Bigfoot, I didn't expect to find that. But it's there and it's quite interesting. So that's kind of what our book is about. But first, how we came about this project was unique. So it's twofold, really. Our agent brought us the assignment. We contracted our agent with our fiction and the illustrations as a team. And then he was speaking with the acquisitions editor at Indiana University Press, who was looking to launch a line of cryptid books. And she talked to him about that, and he had no clue what a cryptid was, which is kind of interesting. He said, believe it or not, I just acquired a couple authors who are writing about cryptids. And he called us and he asked if we might be interested in writing nonfiction. And, there really there's a lot of stuff out there that's nonfiction, and I had been reading it about Bigfoot because our fiction, one of our novels, has Bigfoot in it. Actually, the content for this book is based upon some research I had already done for one of the fictional novels. So to back up a little bit, Mel was she was finishing up high school and starting college in China. So she was living in Suzhou, China during her 19th birthday. And I wanted to send her a birthday gift, but you can never count on the Chinese postal service to deliver, and not like, necessarily on time, at least. So I wanted to make sure she had something for her birthday. I was back here in the States. So I wrote her a story about, at the time, her favorite cryptid, because she really started all of this with the cryptids. And at the time, her favorite cryptid or monster was Bigfoot. And so I started doing research on Bigfoot and reading different books about hunters, about eyewitness testimonies, just trying to get the scoop on Bigfoot, because really all that I knew about Bigfoot, this was about 6 or 7 years ago, 6 years ago. How old are you? All I really knew was from the tabloids. My stepdad used to buy these tabloids that said, woman and Bigfoot have baby, or, Bigfoot seen somewhere. And I thought, that's really all that I knew. So I began reading and researching and really digging into some details that were a little more realistic for her short story. Well, long story short, that short story, Mel moved home. That short story turned into the novel, and in 2018, we pitched it to our agent along with 2 other novels, and then that kind of catches us up. So I have all this research already, and so when our agent brought us this project, we're like, well, we might as well do something with the research. You guys can probably identify with that because you probably do tons of research with your nonfiction books. And some of you, I don't know if you write fiction, but it's a great opportunity to use your research in, making nonfiction, whether it's novellas or pamphlets, ebooks, whatever, good marketing tools there. So that's what we did. But one of the things that I noticed when I was researching, there are a lot of books out there about eyewitness testimonies. People love stories about those firsthand encounters with Bigfoot that people supposedly have. There are a few books out there from scientists who come at the topic from scientific point of view. Size of footprints, the castings that are made, the lack of arches, the bend of the foot, impressions, things like that. There's a lot of scientific data out there that is not necessarily credible. We don't know, but there is that data, and there are books about it. And then on the third type of book that's out there are the books that are journalistic. Who back in the 70s, there was a rise of Bigfoot sightings, Bigfoot's terrorizing families and towns. So maybe you've heard of the Falk monster or the Boggy Creek monster down in
There's Minerva monster.
Louisiana.
The Boggy Creek?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Would you say Minerva
monster is a big
which
one.
is in Ohio.
Yeah.
Yeah. The what else? The Dewey Lake monster, which is in Michigan, and Momo, which happens to be my favorite. I don't know if you can see the picture above, a documentary made from Momo, which is in Missouri.
The white thing down in Alabama.
I don't know if did that have a whole story surrounding
Oh, I
it?
guess not as big as Momo was saying.
So all of these Bigfoots that I just listed, they have stories surrounding them. These Bigfoot creatures, well, that's not a town though. They terrorize towns. So multiple people supposedly saw them. multiple people experience something unusual, and these authors then take this journalistic approach and they go interview, and since it wasn't so terribly long ago, there's still eyewitness accounts. So it's very fascinating. I love that stuff. And so a lot of the research that I dove into even deeper was with those journalistic books. So you'll see on our website, we have a recommendation of books that you can read or websites to visit. And yeah, okay, so those are the 3 types of books that I was researching and looking at. But one of the things that I noticed is that there wasn't a book that encompassed all of that data, all of the topics. And then on top of that, there's the whole entertainment industry, you know, Bigfoot with beef jerky, and Bigfoot in what else? Bigfoot in comics, and how many of you remember Bigfoot in the $6 Million Man? And there's a lot of pop culture in which Bigfoot exists, but doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the Bigfoot that people supposedly see in the woods. And so, but yet they're very much lumped together. And so probably if you're not familiar with Bigfoot, when you think of him, you think of the commercials and what you see on TV. But when you look at those big feet, and then you talk about, well, what would Bigfoot look like in the woods? You know, you think of what people are actually looking for, researching, investigating when they go out into the woods. So there's definitely this crossover, but they're very much 2 distinct creatures. And the scientists in the field will very much tell you that if you talk to them. But very interesting. If you would go to a cryptozoology conference or a Bigfoot conference, you will see one beside the other in like their trade venue, you know, where they set up all the booths to sell stuff. You will see like the men from Finding Bigfoot, Animal Planet's Finding Bigfoot. And then you will see right beside him the scientist, like a professor who's at Idaho State University, who teaches anatomy and biology. He's also a Bigfoot researcher, so he's right beside them. And then next to them, you might see this nice young person who's creating cuddly Bigfoot plushies. And then you'll have jewelry, and then you have podcasts of people who are talking about real life encounters. And the whole gamut is just this big conglomeration of what we call the Bigfoot culture. So that is what our book is about. It's about all these different people who come together and they answer the question of why is Bigfoot such a big deal? So, okay, before we get started, before we go on, I just want to say we want to give away a copy of our book. So now that you know what it's about, let me just open it up here and show you some of the illustrations here. Let's see.
You want to go to the regions in the front?
Okay, we'll let Mel do that. She knows the illustrations better than I do. So she,
That's a good one.
well, that's on the cover. That's the cover of the book.
The cover of the book, and then the Dewey Lake Monster. And these are profiles which give like a in-depth description of Bigfoot. There's Momo, the Genosqua, just a bunch of different types of Bigfoots around that you could find in the different regions of America. Some Bigfoots, yeah. So,
well, I'll show you my favorite picture here. It is in section 3, and it's called History and Legends. And Mel has this ability, probably as all artists do, to take an idea and just really capture something more than just the words. That, you know, can you make an illustration that represents the history and legends of Bigfoot? And so she comes up with a drawing that's similar to this, where Bigfoot, Native American lore, and a campfire, and so we want to give away a copy. And if you're interested, please put your name in the chat box. And Janet's going to keep track of those names, and then she's going to draw someone's name out of a hat or something. And then we're also, and the winner then will just either email us your mailing address, or you can give it to Janice, or you can follow us on Facebook and message us your address. But we'll get your address and we'll mail it out to you. But we're also going to include this little enamel pen. So I don't know if you can see that little guy. That's the cover, same Bigfoot that's on the cover. And we have a second book coming out in May. It's called A Guide to Sky Monsters, and it profiles all kinds of different flying cryptids. But we have an enamel pen for that as well that will have an image from the cover. So each nonfiction book we put out, we think it'd be fun to have a pen like that. So, all right. Any questions? Want to unmute yourself? You certainly can ask a question or put it in the chat, and we can. I'll have Mel. Mel is also going to type our contact information into the chat box, and then she's going to also put in another link for part of a game that we're doing. Click that. Okay. Okay. Just let me know if you have any questions. Okay, so it was around 1950, the late 50s, that Bigfoot really started to become a household conversation. I would love to know when you first heard about Bigfoot. It's not a conversation that a lot of people have, but back in the late 1950s, I think that it did cross a lot of dining room tables. That's when the first big footprints were casted, and that it really got some true headline coverage and was picked up by national news wires and across the country, from Oregon to all over America. So those first footprints were found, actually Washington, were found at Bluff Creek and were casted, and then newspaper pictures, and that is when a journalist for the newspaper out there called the creature Bigfoot. So Bigfoot took off, became this nationwide sensation, and from then on, stories began cropping up. In 1967 is when the Patterson-Gimlin film was made, which is that, if you've ever seen this little 5-second clip of, maybe it's a little more than that, 10-second clip of Bigfoot walking across a creek bed, captured on video, and lots and lots of debate about that. That came out in 1967, which was also the same time that the recorder of that video, Roger Patterson, that's his name? Roger Patterson? Yeah, Bob Gimlin, Roger Patterson. He recorded that video. He was also writing a book, and he was also being endorsed by a cryptozoologist named Ivan T. Sanderson, who was very instrumental in the rise of cryptozoology. And so there's a lot of speculation around whether that video is real or not, obviously. So, but anyways, that's when Bigfoot entered the what I call the modern day culture, and when the Bigfoot culture really started to rise. And as we looked at Bigfoot and looked at this culture, we identified 5 different types of people who make up the culture. And I wanted to read just a little bit from our book that talks about this. So this is in a section that's called Believer or Skeptic, Does It Matter? So I talk a little bit about whether it matters or not. And then I go into talking about these roles. The various roles individuals play within the Bigfoot community have shaped its culture. These positions emerged over time, and their interconnection to one another is often rocky. While some people spend large amounts of money to research and investigate, others hunt for fame and fortune. Still others find themselves fascinated with Bigfoot because of a terrifying firsthand encounter, an experience many hope to never repeat. The entertainment industry has found success exploiting Bigfoot because he is lucrative material. Entwined with these characterizing roles are the fans who enjoy the idea, the books, the entertainment, reading about the adventures and sharing in the fun. So these 5 roles that exist within the Bigfoot culture that we've identified are the eyewitness, the researchers and investigators, the hunters, the entertainer, and then the fan or hobbyist. So if you would you be willing to type in the comments or in the chat, which one do you think you fall into?
So we also have a couple questions here on the side.
Okay, want to read them out?
What is the relationship to the Yeti? And does your book include people who have any proof of sightings that seem legitimate?
Yeah, and so the Yeti came before the Bigfoot. Obviously, not what we would call the wild man. We'll say pre-1950, pre-modern era, beyond there, the Bigfoot would traditionally be called wild man. So in Nepal and in Tibet, same creature called the Yeti. And the Yeti, there are 3 types of Yeti, and our book does detail them. It talks about them. And what we don't go into that I would love to maybe write a little bit more about, but I haven't, is that the Yeti's purpose is really a fascinating thing, which happened, the first expeditions to Nepal happened in the 1940s, pretty soon after World War II, during the Cold War, during the time of the Dalai Lama and his actual escape from Tibet. And there's a lot of talk around whether the Yeti was a cover-up. Many of the investigators on the Yeti expeditions were CIA operatives. They were with the British, we call it secret, it's not Secret Service, but it's the, but they were military and secret operatives. So there's a lot of fascination around Yeti expeditions and who backed them and why these men were part of those expeditions. And so we do talk about the Yeti. We talk about what he is. Did you find the illustration?
Yeah. So there's a section in here called Bigfoots Around the World, and the 3 types of Yetis show up here. So there's the Dute, Mete, and the Teima. So yeah, they fit in the section of Bigfoots Around the World. So yeah, we do include the Yeti.
Sorry, I get on tangents, but I get really excited about the Bigfoot cover-ups and how Bigfoot has been used as an excuse, so to speak, for other events, because who can refute Bigfoot? You know, Mel and I talk all the time. If you go into the woods and maybe you do something you shouldn't do, just blame it on Bigfoot, because you know, who can tell you that they don't exist?
So there's another question right there. Wondering if you read Jim Butcher Dresden Files. A Bigfoot called the River Shoulders often shows up. I never heard the River Shoulders.
I tell you, I am currently trying to read the first Jim Butcher book of the Dresden Files, and while I like it, I don't know. There's something about it that's just not overly appealing to me. No, I've not read that book, but I'll have to. I don't know. I wonder if we can read those like as standalones. Like if we could just read the 3rd book as a standalone, or I'm sure I would enjoy it. Would you include werewolves or any were animals in the cryptozoology category? Many people include Dogman or the Beast of Bray Road. Can you? I don't know. We have
I don't think so.
Beast of Bray Road up there. I'll lift this a little bit, and you can see him right there beside Momo.
Right there.
Yep, the Beast of Bray Road, which was kind of like a were
Dogman.
In Wisconsin.
But they,
Gray Road's in Wisconsin. Dogman's known
Michigan.
throughout the northern states.
but dogmen and werewolves, they fit in a category called bipeds or humanoids, similar to Bigfoot. However, Bigfoot is so big that he kind of gets his own category. But I would say that they fit in the bipedal cryptids or the humanoid cryptids. So,
Okay, one more question, and then we'll move on here. Do you do any in-person interviews with people who saw a Bigfoot, and or did you go out on any Bigfoot outings? I have never gone out on a Bigfoot outing. Have you? You have not either.
a
Right?
Bigfoot outing? No.
They do
Not
that.
intentionally.
You know, they do them on, you know, the Bigfoot conferences a lot of times. So they'll one day will be scheduled as an outing. I don't do outings in the woods very well, although I love to go out and walk. And we've done some legend tripping over at Cedar Bog in Ohio. Mel and I have gone out and we've explored the area because we like to see the territories that people say that they have seen Bigfoots. So Cedar Bog, which is near Urbana, Ohio, is a place we've gone, and we've gone to Salt Fork State Park, which is where they just apparently found a 4-inch tooth of a Bigfoot. So if you've seen that video on Facebook, it's kind of interesting. Salt Fork is a really pretty place to walk around. So I like walking around them, but I don't spend a lot of time with Bigfoot enthusiasts. I love hearing stories though. Love hearing stories. And yes, I do talk to people, a lot of people who have had encounters and stories, and I'm always analyzing them and picking them apart, but I don't ever tell them I'm doing that because I'm trying to look for what's really going on in here. In the first part of our book, we talk about what is Bigfoot really? And is he an animal, flesh and blood animal? Is he a paranormal entity? Is he an evil force, a demon, so to speak, a force demon? Is he, you know, an alien? Is he, you know, a monster? You know, we go through we explore all these. What is Bigfoot? Because I really do believe that what people see is not always the same thing. So I find their stories fascinating. So yeah. Okay, to immerse you into the Bigfoot culture, we want to play a game with you that is called the Great Bigfoot Search of 2021. We'll come back to any questions then after the game, okay? So if you want to play the game, let's see, I need to share my screen at this point. So this is the first time I did this, so we'll hopefully I do okay. So here are my instructions. Wait, I think I just need to share screen. And then
Right here.
select your monitor.
Right there, that one.
No, it says select the monitor, not. Okay, you say. I'll do what she says. That way, if we're wrong. See, that didn't work. So
Well,
sorry.
no, it's okay. They're seeing the thing. So put that in full window. Yep.
Are you guys seeing our screen?
Okay, now start from the beginning. Okay, there we go.
Yes, we are.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so if you want to play the game, what we need for you to do is to grab a piece of paper and a pen. And then I'm going to tell you how to number it because the slides aren't, or the questions that we ask first are not quite in order. So I'll tell you how to number your paper. So I'm going to give you just a couple minutes here to grab paper and pen. Everybody got it? If not, it's not hard to keep up. Okay, so here's how I want you to number your paper. So in a vertical line. Number 2, number 1, number 4, number 3, and then we go in order. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'll say that again. 2, 1, 4, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Kind of like you're getting ready to take a spelling test, only not. All right, this is very much like a Mad Lib game if you've ever played one. I'm going to show you a slide. It's going to have a question, and you're going to answer that question as it relates to you. And so the first slide then will be number 2. Okay, so here we go. Now in our Bigfoot book, we identified 5 regional areas of the most concentrated Bigfoot sightings. And so those are the northeastern woodlands, the southern Appalachia, the deep south, the Midwest, and the Pacific Northwest. And then we highlight legends from each of those territories. So you are going to choose the location in which your birth date falls, and then write that on the first line, number 2. All right. This is going to go on at number 1. You're going to be assigned an assistant according to your birth month. So a lot of people, I always say, a lot of people helped us to write this book. There are a lot of cryptozoology experts out there. I am not a cryptozoology expert. I research and then I write, and it can be about various topics. This just happens to be about Bigfoot, and our next book happens to be about flying cryptids, but I'm not an expert in the whole field of cryptozoology. These people in the field of Bigfoot, I consider them experts, and we have read their books. We've talked to them in person. We've just really kind of looked at how they do things and who their market is, and we try to bring in that market without pushing the boundaries too much of fiction, so to speak. So your assistant will be assigned according to your birth months. You probably have already written it down next to number 1 there. Now the link down there, it's also in the chat, right? You put it in the chat?
I haven't sent it yet.
Oh, okay. Well, go ahead and put that in the chat if you would.
Well, you're sharing the screen.
Oh, I can't. Oh, okay. Well,
We'll put it in.
we'll put it in the chat so that you have it. But over at Cryptid World, you can also find this link on the slide under the tab of games and puzzles. But you can read about your expert. So many of these you've probably heard, well, a few of these you may have heard of or you know about, like Josh Gates in February there. He has the Discovery series of like, what are his? Destination Unknown, Destination Expedition, and Destination Truth. Destination Truth is his cryptid show in which he would go on hunts and expedition. Yeah. I think he casted a Yeti footprint, I want to say.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that casted footprint, the original of it is at Disney World, I believe. Oh. So yeah. There's a fake of it. There's a big Bigfoot museum in Georgia. Mel and I visited there, and there's a reproduction of that there, but not the original one. You may have heard of, in June, Cliff Brackman, and December, James Bobofe. They're both stars on the Animal Planet's Finding Bigfoot. And then in August, the Small Town Monsters crew, I don't know if you've heard of them. They do documentaries. Most of their documentaries are on Amazon Prime, and that's who all of our images, our pictures of behind us are from. I am a big Small Town Monsters fan. I am friends with the director. He read our upcoming Sky Monsters book and offered an endorsement for it. And when I say friends, I say that loosely. We come from the same perspective of writing and creating, and that is giving the truth, showing the truth, showing the facts, showing what happened around scenarios, and then letting people make up their mind whether something is believable or not. So we're never trying to influence, never trying to be opinionated. So, all right, moving along to what will be number 4, or your third answer. Here, you are on your, okay, I'm not going to tell you any of the story yet till we're done. So, of your choosing, you get to choose a tool to take while you're going on a trip. So you get to choose a tool. And write that down. Any one you want. All right, all right. Next, your skill, your special skill that you were chosen for to be a part of the expedition you're going to be going on is identified by your age. So choose your age or find your age, and then that is your skill. The last audience we did this for, we had an under 18 category. So I changed it a little bit. I participated in your group last month, Incognito. So I kind of knew that the audience was a little more my age. So I changed this up a little bit. Okay, next. Just list what is your favorite color. I'm sorry, don't list your favorite color. List what is written beside your favorite color. All right. Within the story, your assistant has an accident, and this is what happens. What's your favorite vegetable? Check the chat here. All right. So write down what is beside your favorite vegetable there. Moving on. All right. Besides crime or mystery, because I have a feeling a lot of you like that in this group, what is your favorite movie or book genre? Write down what is beside your favorite genre. When we get through these slides, I'll check the chat real quick and make sure we don't have any questions. So if you have a question and need me to go back to a slide, just ask. Or unmute yourself and ask. If I were more familiar with Zoom, I'd know how to check the chat while I'm doing this, but I don't. So I'm afraid I'll mess it up. All right, next question. Choose your current mode of transportation and then write down what is beside it. So these are all things that people have said have happened to them. Maybe except the last one under other. I don't know of any stories where people have told me Bigfoot posed for them, but all of the other I have read or heard from people or listened as people explain them on YouTube videos. Okay. Where would your ideal vacation take you? Beside your answer, write down what it says there. Okay. Give you just a second in case you're not sure whether you prefer the desert or the ocean. It's not an easy decision. All right, here we go. Okay, so you have all your answers in front of you. and they go in order of the story. And what I want you to do then is, this is the first part of the story. It's the setup. And so I want each of you to read this paragraph to yourself. I thought about reading it out loud, but I think it works better if you read it to yourself. And then I'm going to switch to the next slide, and you'll go right into reading your story, filling in the blanks as you read the story to yourself. And then we'll have a couple of you share. Okay, so go ahead and read through this. And then you'll fill in the blanks with your answers. I'm sure that many of you are fast readers, or I don't want to cut anybody off though. Would anyone like to unmute and share their story? And by the way, you can find this template on our website. I'll put up our contact information, and our link for contact information is also in the chat. And you can find this story on our website under the Puzzles and Games tab. So, okay, I'm going to go back here. Would someone be willing to unmute and read their story? No?
I will. This is
Okay.
Janet.
Okay.
Okay, the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization noticed an influx of credible Bigfoot sightings throughout North America. The investigators had their hands full in a couple of localized areas, so they recruited me for a weekend because of my expertise. Here's what happened. Right away, I met with my assistant, Josh Gates, and set out for the Midwest. Yeah, big journey. We were given a tent. I have a question. Were 3 and 4 mixed up?
4 should have been.
Okay, we were given a tent along with a pack filled with food, a camera, a flashlight, a first aid kit, and an evidence collection kit. Because of my skill with, I have binoculars.
Oh, okay. Maybe they are mixed up then. Okay.
Well, I'll switch them. I'll switch them. Because of my skill and knowledge of, with my Bigfoot knowledge, I chose to take along binoculars with night vision. We traveled to our destination. On our first night, it started raining and the tent collapsed. The next morning, the sun was shining and it was a new day. My assistant and I found evidence of footprints, hair, and scat. We were on the trail until my assistant got us lost. We lost time, but that didn't deter us. We found more evidence and we knew we were back on the trail. That night, the moon was full. We set out nuts, fruit, and just in case, a strip of beef jerky. Then I positioned myself behind a bush and waited and waited. Half the night passed. Just as I was about to nod off, the trees moved. Then Bigfoot stepped into the moonlight and ate the food. I got a good glimpse. Bigfoot looked curious. It crossed its arms and backed away. Slowly, I found the camera. Bigfoot ran away. After that, our search came to an end because after I took the big picture, Bigfoot attacked and ate my assistant.
Oh.
After all, it was a great experience. And it was good punishment for getting us lost.
I guess so, especially when especially when it was Josh Gates. But now what? Now what happens with his shows? Okay, thank you so much for sharing, Janet. That was fun. All right, here's our contact information, where you can find us. And again, that link is in the chat, so I won't leave this up too long. Okay. Let's escape here, and we'll go back to
Stop share.
stop share.
Okay, you just want to click enter on that one.
All right, cryptozoology expert stuff. Okay, let's go to some questions here before we move on.
This one. It was this one.
Okay. On page 123 of your book, you write, "Where do ideas come from?" Is there an answer?
I have it pulled up here.
In this context, we're profiling, or we're talking about Dr. Bernard Huevelsmans, who was one of the very first cryptozoologists. He actually was a zoologist who he was very genuine in his research of animals, and was back in the day, his time, new discoveries were still being made, and some are today, but a little more so back then. So he's the first to come up with an idea in any category or area of interest. Can be a fascinating figure. Where do ideas come from? Who influences a person to think about such things? The reason why I wrote that was because I found it interesting that back then, in I want to early 1900s, back then there was no one to influence Mr. Huevelsmans. There was no one to influence him in this field. So his ideas had to come from whatever he thought of in his head. So what influenced him? What ideas influenced him? What ideas influence us then? And so I was thinking, some of his early, his favorite reads were what, Jules Verne's?
Yeah, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Yeah, and so I found it very interesting that what influenced him a lot in his thinking outside the box, so to speak, were fictional works. And so then I was thinking about today and about us, and what influences our thinking outside the box. Is it based on facts? Is it based on what other people tell us? Is it based on what we learn from other scholars? How do we know it's fact? How do we don't? So where do ideas come from? It's what influences our world, these outside sources, whatever it is we're into, like Melissa gaining her inspiration from nature, and nature influences her. That's where her ideas come from. And so for Bernard Huevelsman, did his ideas come from Jules Verne's? And it just made me wonder, okay, is that the basis of cryptozoology from fiction? Just a thought. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
And do you assume Bigfoot is male?
Do I assume Bigfoot is male? No, I do not. But I don't assume that a lot of people will say that Bigfoot, that the Bigfoot within the Patterson-Gimlin film taken in 1967, which is what they call the most credible clip. A lot of people assume that what they call Patty is a female because she has breasts. And since we didn't get to study her scientifically, look at her we don't know. I don't assume. In the book, we do use pronouns, he, and I state that right up front. It's just easier for me to write that way than using they and using she. That's harder to read. So that's why I did that, but I don't assume anything. In order for if Bigfoot were an animal, in order for any population of animal to populate, you have to have both male and female. So unless it's asexual, but that's not really any area that we were dealing with here. Yeah. So that's why. But no, I don't assume.
That one.
what is your favorite sighting story and why? I presume it's in the book. Well, I have a favorite sighting story, but it's old and it's well known, and it has to do with Momo up here, right there on the wall. You want to point, Mel? Because there you go. The Missouri Monster. And the reason why is because so many people were affected by this. And if you go on Amazon Prime, you can actually look up Small Town Monsters, Momo documentary. And it will, and I don't know if it costs or if you have Prime, you can watch it for free, but they tell the story. And they, the first to see this creature were a couple teenage girls, and they were on a picnic, and they're in this old VW bug, and the Momo's carrying a dog, and they're kind of concerned about the dog. They're concerned about themselves. But anyways, they go home. There are some family dynamics that are unfolding at the same time, but this creature then is seen by others within that community. And there's also some paranormal things happening. And it's very interesting. It's very fascinating. It's different from some of the other monster looked in my window and it scared me, and I followed him into the woods and it was a Bigfoot. And
It's my favorite.
that's your favorite?
Yeah, the Minerva monster.
Yeah. And so yeah, that would be my favorite. Melissa's the Minerva monster. You can tell about it.
Yeah, the Minerva monster, just because the thought of like a red-eyed humanoid monster looking in your window really scares me, and I like to be scared. So that's why.
Yeah. Okay. So if you would like to enter the contest to win a copy of this book or the drawing, please put your name in the chat now, and Janet will draw a name here pretty soon. And I just want to talk a little bit about, unless you want me to finish up, I see it's 1 o'clock already. My, how time flies. But I just want to talk a little bit about our writing collaboration and illustrating collaboration. And so the way that this came about, I told you earlier, with our agent, and then we had to put together a proposal. We did that, and what I wanted to do was target, my main target audience, honestly, is an 18 to 50-year-old audience of women, but an emphasis on the 18 to 25 to 30 audience, an emphasis on them. So when I was developing the proposal, I really went to Melissa and I said, what would you like to read in a book? What would make you pick up a book? And so then we kind of laid it out that way with shorter sections and something happening. Tried not to be too dry or too long. Some of it is, I think, drier in the culture section, because I wanted to explain some things. So anyways, we laid it out in 6 parts. We presented the illustrations we were going to include, kind of, and we turned that in to the publisher, and they were okay with what we were doing with a few changes. And then we changed things up as we went along. Most of our time was spent in this office, back to back, Mel drawing, me writing, and hardly ever talking, but we would brainstorm issues. Mel was in charge of all the profiles, section 2, section 6, all the profiles and all the illustrations, and I was in charge of writing the rest of the book. But we brainstormed together, and we came up with ideas together, tweaked it together, reviewed each section together, and then fired it off. So we wanted to end this section with telling you, or end this presentation, working as partners is always challenging, but there are rewards too. So we thought we would each share one reward and one challenge that we faced in writing together, not just this book, but the next book as well. So Mel, do you want to start with, what was your greatest challenge in working as a duo?
I would say, because we're both pretty independent creators, we tend to have different viewpoints on the project, and whether it be the way of an illustration looks, or what should go in this section. I would say we're pretty headstrong in what we both want, and so like coming to
who's going to give?
Yeah, who's going to give. Yeah.
It's always me. It's always me.
That's not true.
No, it's not. It's not always true.
So I would say, yeah, just deciding whose idea goes into, into the project. So
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah.
And so for me, my greatest challenge in working together really was trying not to be a boss, not to be a mom, but to be a partner. And that's really hard to do when you spent your whole life, making decisions and, being in control and giving up that control and stepping back and saying, hey, I'm not the one in charge here. So that probably was my greatest challenge because I'm not afraid to, like I am now, bulldozing right over her.
You sure wasn't waiting until like noon to talk to me?
Oh, that's a close second. She is not a morning person.
I'm a morning person, but I'm not a talkative morning person.
Yeah, 11 a.m. And she's not an evening person either. So there's a small window that I have to capture like the ideal. And it's like right after this meeting, like 1 o'clock, we're going to be working on a book trailer for a guide to sky monsters, the next book. And I need to get her ideas. So I have a small window today to capture that.
Okay, so
Okay,
you
so
go with the positive first.
positive. Okay, the greatest reward in working together. This is hands down for me. I mean, anytime you get to do a project with your child, I mean, it's like an heirloom type thing. These books. I'm just so happy that I got to experience this with her. And in the process of writing anything that we've worked on together, we do road trips. And we have some of the most amazing memories from those road trips. So that is my greatest reward in working together are the memories and the road trips.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How about you?
Well, I would say the road trips as well, but I would say that, well, obviously, if it wasn't for you, then we would not have the project. We wouldn't have the book, and so I would say that your ability to see a project through all the way is what has taught me to do the same thing with my personal projects and my personal business. So I would say, you're the backbone of the book, the backbone of the project. So
If I'm the backbone, then she is the heart and the spirit and the fun of it all. So it works for us. It works for us, and we're very blessed to be able to have this opportunity. So, and we're very blessed to have this opportunity to be here with you too. So. Okay, that is.
just one last question.
Oh, we have another question here. And then after this question, then maybe Janet can draw the name, announce that. So what is your next project and is there a working title? So Mel, why don't you go first? What are you working on right now?
So behind the scenes, what I'm working on, I haven't announced it yet to my Instagram followers, but it's called a Creature Lookbook. And it's a 12-page zine, which is like a mini magazine, and it features 12 creatures from one specific biome. So I have a world, I don't have a name for my world, but it has like a whole bunch of like fictional and non-fictional biomes. And so there's going to be an issue probably every month that features, like I said, 12 exclusive zine access only creatures. So that's what I'm working on.
Do you want to show that? You want to give them a sneak peek?
Oh, I guess I could, yeah.
You guys are lucky. Nobody has seen these yet.
Yep.
And actually, she has 3 of these done. So she's
yeah.
ready to go. She has 3 editions done. She's ready to go.
So this is issue 1, and it's called the Lava Yard, which is obviously a fake biome that I made up. When you open it up, it shows a whole big illustration, and then here's some monsters on the inside, and these are all original designs exclusive to these zines, so you won't see these anywhere else. You won't see them on my Instagram or my website. So yeah, and it gives a little description of the creature and what they do. So yeah, that's what I'm working on, and I'll be selling them on Etsy. For more information on my creatures, you can follow my Instagram at MEL CABRE. So yeah, and I'm always working on my website and adding creatures to my Instagram. So
Mel targets a younger audience, and she has a lot of followers on Instagram who are in that teenage, like 14, I would say, on up to what, 25.
My demographic is 14 to like 30.
30, yeah. She has close to 30,000 followers now on Instagram, which is just great because she knows how to interact with them, and she knows how to play games and ask questions, and yeah, so she really understands the dynamics of building platform and what that can do. So she's busy with that. I'm busy with writing. I'm fine-tuning the fictional novels that we've presented to the agent in the very beginning. We have I have three completed novels with some ancillary products like drawings and things like that go with them. So I'm putting together a proposal, fine-tuning those. Our agent wanted us to build platform while we were creating these nonfiction books. It was a good opportunity to create the website, to be on Facebook, Instagram, which I am horrible at. It's just very hard for me. I'm better with the website and the blog and the newsletter and a YouTube channel. Those are probably going to be my central things that I focus on. The social media stuff is just really hard for me I feel like it's a time waster in some ways. Much rather do things like this. But so we've been spending the time it took to create those first two books, really with the end goal in mind of having this fiction project top notch to pitch to publishers out there. And then we'll see from there. So that's what I'm working on right now. Fine tuning. Some of the novel, or two of the novels are done, one more to go. And then the proposal is kind of in process. So I would say it's mostly done of being fine-tuned. So that's what I'm working on right now. Do we plan on doing another nonfiction book together? We would love to do a water monsters cryptid book together, because I believe it would center around the origins of mankind and early civilizations and how early civilizations populated the earth. I have a tremendous fascination with that. And I believe that a lot of that happened by early shipbuilders and people who didn't necessarily just, go north from like the Mesopotamia or Middle East, but they got in boats and went south too. I don't know if I'm saying that very intelligently, but that's what I mean. So, all right. Well, that concludes what we have to say today. Any more questions or anything we can do for you? Janet, you got a winner for us?
I'm muting myself, sorry.
Okay.
I just want to make one. I'm gonna. Anybody wants to? If you haven't put your name in, I'll give you like a count to 10 to do it right now. 1, 2. Because I have some names here, but I want to make sure anybody who gets their name in has a chance. Okay. I've got them right here, and I'm mixing them up using my old reporter's notebook to do these, and I'm drawing one, and the winner is Andrea Smith. Andrea, you are the winner.
Congratulations, Andrea. We will send you a book. We will send you an enamel pin, and I'll probably throw in some fun little trading cards. Yeah. Maybe a bookmark too.
And do you want the book signed by us? We can also send like a what are they
book
called?
plate.
Yeah.
Sign it. We can sign it or not.
Yeah.
Andrea, when you you can either give your address to
I think
Janet.
Andrea's gone.
Yeah,
Oh,
Andre is gone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe just get in touch with her then, and yeah, okay. When she,
I guess we could have stipulated that you had to stick around for the drawing, huh?
Oh, well, maybe people could have felt, obligation.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. So I'll let her know that she won,
Okay,
and
okay.
I'll make sure that the address gets to the right places.
Okay.
And I would assume she wants it signed.
Okay. All right, we'll make that assumption.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, well, this is
Okay.
Thank you so
Janice.
much.
Thank you. This was just wonderful. You did this is an interesting and fun program. So thank you. And I will be in touch by email in a little while. And so great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see
And
what's
thanks.
coming next.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome.